Good afternoon. If you need to buy a house and you apply for a loan and the bank says no, you're going to try again. There are a lot of banks, just use a different bank. Pretty simple. In 2023, China and Russia did about $240 billion in cross-border trade, and that is a 26% jump from 2022. That's the official number, and it's probably much higher. We just don't know for sure because so much trade is being done outside the US dollar now. Lately, though, large Chinese banks were afraid to process Russian business. The largest Russian companies are under sanction by Western governments, and that also includes Russian banks. These sanctions are enforced via the SWIFT system, which expelled Russian banks and companies from settling trades. And here's the problem then, which is that Chinese banks are also on SWIFT. These Chinese banks do business with countries around the whole world, not just with Russia. So they're concerned that they too will be kicked out of the global system and perhaps even have their assets seized or frozen. Here we see that Chinese banks are stopping deals, refusing to handle trade settlements between Chinese companies and Russian companies. As of March, 2 months ago, 80% of settlements on SWIFT have been suspended. Russia and China are strongly incentivized to figure out how to continue the business without the biggest Chinese banks, who will see the business as too risky to all their other international business operations. Renmin University is in Beijing. It's a very influential public policy university, and researchers there have published a paper which lays out a foundation for a new banking system outside of SWIFT. In simple terms, the idea is to use smaller banks that do not do business with Western companies and designate those banks as special purpose, and also to develop the local economies in the border areas of Russia and China. In order for Chinese banks to do business in or with foreign countries, they need a special designation from China's Ministry of Finance, similar to a promotion. That's what this means. And these banks would be tasked to build out new channels for payment and settlements with Russia. Using smaller banks instead of big ones solves one of the problems, which is how to get the deals done, though the larger international banks in China don't want to handle it because of the risk to them. But this still is not quite enough. China and Russia will also need to build an alternative to the SWIFT system itself. The skeleton is already in place. The mechanisms are already there, but the problem is lack of capital depth. The renminbi, the Chinese currency, is widely used in Russia now, but China is reluctant for Russia or for any other country, really, to be borrowing money in RMB to be repaid in RMB. So that's an issue that needs to be worked out. And that problem leads to another one, which is here. Banks earn money by making loans, not just converting currencies to make trades happen. Chinese banks, in this case, will need more incentives to build out this business. If they do business with Russia, they will be unable to grow in other markets. They will be unable to use a SWIFT system for anything. So how can they make money? Well, their idea is for these banks to underwrite economic development projects. Railroads and ports are still needed in the Russian Far East, as well as terminals and pipelines for LNG projects, for example. These economic development loans could be made in RMB and repaid in RMB by Chinese companies in China. And the banks would also be overnight lenders processing trades for Russian exports to China. And that is how they can create new loan reserves, capital pools, that are not developed now. This framework here then can solve a lot of problems. How to do the trade at all between Russia and China without using the SWIFT system and without exposing any of China's foreign exchange reserves to be frozen or seized. How to develop areas in Russia's Far East and in China's Far North that still need infrastructure. And how to incentivize smaller local banks in those areas to take on the risk of doing the cross-border trades and to make the economic development loans. Just use a different bank. Pretty simple.
theirs is the kingdom of heaven.
Hunan food, food from Hunan province. If you think this food looks pretty spicy, you have no idea.
Blessed are those who
Be good.
hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world. Let your light shine before men,